true believers, and welcome to another edition of BK's Bullets. My name is not Brent Cassina. My name is Jim Afanis, and from time to time, I talk to you guys about comic book related television shows. Today, I want to talk to you guys about Green Arrow and the Canaries. So I still plan to do an episode on the finale of Arrow, which will encompass my thought of the entire experience. That was my first ever CW show that I ever watched, and I absolutely adored it. I really like the Arrow. And I did a review not too long ago on this very channel, which you should comment, rate, and subscribe to if you haven't done so already. Talking about the Crisis on Infinite Earths and my thoughts on that. So, as a result of the Crisis, clearly we now have one Prime Earth, but things are not necessarily as they were beforehand. And we are now presented with Green Arrow and the Canaries, which follows along with Mia, Dinah, and Laurel Lance in Star City 2040, but a very different Star City than we saw on Arrow. This is not a dystopian future run by the evil Deathstroke gang. This is actually a crime-free utopia in which everybody lives happily and merrily. And for some odd reason, both Dinah and Mia end up in 2040 completely unaged. Now, I guess you could say Mia from that universe would not age. That makes a lot of sense. But Dinah clearly did age when we saw her in the 2040 during Arrow's, towards the end of the last season of Arrow. Laurel Lance, obviously, kind of a misfit. The Laurel Lance we know is gone. And we had a Laurel Lance from Earth 2 who came over, who was still kind of evil, who's semi-reformed, who now kind of really seems genuinely pure-hearted in her attempt to try to solve the world's mysteries. And that is where this episode picks up, with the unlikely trio unifying once more in an effort to save a famous daughter of the socialite daughter who is somehow inadvertently responsible for very bad things to happen a year later. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole story because, I mean, that's really part of it. But I enjoyed this episode. But what I really wanted to talk about is, should this show exist? And I say yes. I've seen the criticism both against the show and the actresses saying it's just more of the same. You know, why do we need this? I challenge you to say, why don't we need this? See, Arrow has been a phenomenal stepping stone for all of the CW universe, dubbed as the Arrowverse. And we've gotten a lot of great spin-offs because of that show. Thankfully, now to the Crisis on Infinite Earths, where everybody is pulled in together on Earth Prime. We no longer have to worry about all these various Earths, and everybody can coexist together. It's a crowded space, though. There's a lot of shows on the CW, and they're going to only be adding more. I know Lois and Clark is going to be coming on soon. So you have to ask yourself, well, geez, do we really need to continue? Can't we just drop off of Arrow and let all the other shows take the limelight? I think Arrow is in a very unique position, particularly because it is a very established franchise with very established characters, something that the other shows are slowly working on their own. But how cool would it be if we just had Arrow minus Arrow? More of the same, not really. Clearly the choreography, clearly the tone of the show, they're going for something a little different. The music was definitely much more upbeat in Green Arrow and the Canaries versus the regular Arrow television show. There's a lot of mystery and intrigue. I mean, Arrow had that too. There were no flashbacks, thankfully. But could it exist in a future where we still see John Diggle around? Renee was mentioned. Will he still be around? We know Arrow's obviously gone, and Felicity has self-written herself out of the show. Maybe Thea will make a triumphant return. Maybe we'll see Slade Wilson again. It's hard to say. But it makes me think that, the show can exist in a world where Arrow doesn't exist anymore, but we still have characters who still have some intrigue and mystery to them. I definitely like Mia as a character. I think she's really cool. I applaud that we're getting more female lead roles because it's been definitely saturated with guys for a very long time. I'm not talking about CW. Clearly, we already have a couple lead female roles, but just in TV in general, it seems like guys are kind of dominating the narrative. It's nice to have a female in there, and the fact that we have 3 capable females who are willing to kind of put themselves out and, fight for really the unknown is really kind of interesting. I think back to the first season of Arrow when Ollie was basically continuing on his father's legacy with the journal and going around as basically a homicidal maniac, murdering people in the name of his city. In this show, you have characters who don't really belong in this time or in this place. I know we could argue about Mia. But have come here under the call of a greater good and are willing to kind of put themselves on the line. It's interesting as more and more characters are reprogrammed, essentially, learning of their alternate lives, will we start to see a lot more breakdown in terms of what their normal life is. My only fear is that it doesn't just devolve back into more of the same plot we saw in Arrow. I'm all about keeping the characters. I think they're unique. I still think watching my favorite character, the Black Canary, she's my favorite. I love her. I love watching to see what she's going to do next. And seeing Laurel really with this redemption arc continue is really, really fascinating to me. I really hope that, Mia kind of comes into her own, and I hope they pick this show up. I have yet to hear anything official on it. I think the reception is somewhat lukewarm, understandably so, only because we just got done with Crisis on Infinite Earths, so we're trying to figure out what the new normal is. We're not really sure where this show fits into everything. If we just spent all this time building up in Earth Prime and putting all of our characters there, does it make sense to then take some of our favorite characters, at least my favorite characters, and shift them 20 years into the future? Well, maybe not in terms of the Arrow universe. Are they going to do a lot of time travel? I hope not. If they want to stay in 2040, that's fine with me. I would be okay with it still being in present day. I don't know why they necessarily feel like they have to jump into some future. It kind of disconnects from the reality of what's going on day to day. But at the same time, having a group of females who don't necessarily have superhuman powers continue to fight like the way Arrow did in all of his seasons is very interesting to me. And I'm curious to see where the show goes next. So that was just my quick thoughts on it. I wanted to get that out there because I am such an Arrow super fan. And I know Brent's been on travel, so he hasn't had much content on his channel lately. And I figured, hey, this is what I'm here for, is to give you guys quality stuff. Leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on Green Arrow and the Canaries. Did you like it? Didn't you like it? What worked? What didn't? Let me know. I will be feverishly awaiting all of your responses. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys in the funny pages.